We'll call the meeting to order. We do have some guests in our midst, so we'll start off by some introductions. And Lionel, we'll let you start.
Lionel Just, Division 10, which is your division.
Good morning, Hebe Callan, Division 2, Tilly area.
Good morning, Tracy Fife, Division 5, and I'm southwest around the area of Brooks.
Good morning, Anne-Marie Phillipson, County of New Patricia area.
Good morning, Brian DeJong, and I represent the area around the village of Dutchess.
Good morning, I'm Clarence Amelung. I represent Div 1, which is Rolling Hills, and I chair the MPC. And we do these introductions so everybody knows who they are, not for your benefit, but for theirs. As you can tell, some people have trouble.
I can tell it's going to be one of those days. I'm Molly Douglas, and I represent the northern part of the county, the Gem, Finnegan, Duck Lake area.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Kevin Stevenson, County Administrator.
Morning, I'm Kelly Chrisman, and I came in from the west side of the county today, Division 6.
Good morning, I'm Wayne Hammergan, Division 4, which is Scandia, Rainier, and Bow City.
Good morning, I'm Ellen Unruh, and I represent the countryside around the village of Rosemary.
I'm Pam Elliott, I'm Admin Assistant Planning and Development.
Lane Johnson, the Director of Corporate Services.
Sandra Stanway, Brooks Bulletin.
Len Skyper, Director of the Old Man River Regional Services Commission and County Planner.
Okay, good morning, and not picking on anybody, Kevin, but we do have a policy of not having our caps on. Thank you. No, that's fine. Okay, no one has to be excused from the meeting. We're all here. The minutes for the last meeting, which was February the 6th, were circulated. Trace?
I just have one correction just under, and when we moved the minutes of the previous, it just says January, and there's no date attached to it.
Okay.
And with those corrections, I'll approve the minutes as circulated.
Okay, thanks, Trace. Pam will probably has noted that. All in favor? Those are passed. Any post-agenda items? Seeing none, can we have an adoption of the agenda? Anne-Marie? Anne-Marie moves. All in favor? Thank you. Then we'll go on to subdivisions. Lance? No, sorry, Anne-Marie. Yes, okay, thank you. Lance?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. In front of you this morning is a proposal to create one new parcel, approximately 14.64 acres in size, and it's already containing a house with an attached garage. It's currently under construction. And this is from a previously subdivided quarter section containing 154.85 acres. The purpose is for residential use, and the land to be subdivided is approximately 1 mile west of the city of Brooks and just north of Highway 542 or Castles Road. The property does fall within the intermunicipal development plan area as well, so it was brought to the committee last week for their comments. In your package, we have provided a number of options. The first option is actually that the application be refused because of the number of existing subdivisions that currently occur within the area and on the the quarter section. So that is in direct conflict with your land use bylaw. But there are some provisions as well in the MGA for councils to look at subdivisions and to approve them if they have merit. So we have presented some other options for council to consider as well. But we did want to go on the record as saying that the land use bylaw does not stipulate that number of subdivisions within the parcel, but there are obviously merits to various cases. The other option then, if it's not to be refused, is that council approve the subdivision subject to a number of conditions. One of them is that reserve be paid or that reserve be deferred to the residual parcel. So that's something that the authority will have to decide. I kept saying council, sorry, it's MPC. There are, excuse me, a number of conditions as well. One, that all outstanding property taxes be paid, that the applicant or owner enter into a development agreement should one be needed. That probably be for something minor like a culvert or the approach. There is a request that an encroachment agreement be established between the applicant and the adjacent landowner for the encroachment of the pump house on the northernmost portion of the property line. There is a request or a possibility that the size of the parcel could also be reduced. It is a little bit of odd shaped. It's on a pivot exclusion area, so it's the corner, and it does have a little bit of a, I guess, a tail going to the west and to the south that may conflict with future development should the city of Brooks annex at some time. So that was one of their concerns. So again, MPC may wish to consolidate the size down from 14 acres into something a little smaller. Another issue is the easement for legal and physical access. Currently, there is a road adjacent to this property, and then access is taken off there, and that's the reason for one of the long tails to the south, is to get access from that road onto the property. What could happen, though, is that an easement could be provided instead of allowing for that long tail, and then at a future time when a road is constructed, the applicant in this case would be required to hook into that municipal road. So those are some of the things to consider. The other option is to just accept and approve the subdivision as it's been applied for, right? So as you see it in the description and on the map. There are a number of informatives. I think really the only one that has any bearing is the Intermunicipal Development Plan Committee outcome, and there the application was referred for approval to the county's MPC after discussion. Okay, I don't know if there's any questions.
We'll open the floor for questions. Kelly?
MP, or the partnership with the Brooks.
IDP.
IDP, thank you. They just referred, they didn't give an opinion? Or as part of their reply, was there an opinion in that?
They did just verbally provide a response there, yes. And their whole concern was largely with fitting into the structure to the east and how, should it be annexed 25 to 50 years from now, how that particular subdivision might fit in with a more urban type of design or plan. Right.
And then my next question was around ownership. Both quarters, are they owned by different folks? Neighboring parcels?
No, I believe they're owned by the same owners, both the north parcel and the south parcel.
Are you sure of that? Are they the same owner by different name? Okay. Go.
So the main parcel, the 154 acres, and the proposed subdivision are the same owners. Is that the question? Or are you asking about the quarter to the north? That's not the same owner, that's MCF Feeders. Yeah. Who has been renting this quarter from us for the last 15 years.
Further questions, Brian?
My concern or question is mostly on the road that needs to be constructed to provide access to this parcel. And the way I understand it, there's a lane there currently that's not on that quarter, but is part of the road network? And where it ends, what is the responsibility from there to the residents? Not only for the residents' sake, but for emergency services, so on. So, you know, school buses, emergency services, whatever the case may be. We generally need a road to be constructed to a certain level, and I'm just curious about our commitment to making sure that that happens.
You have to answer that.
Good morning. I'm just going to, maybe not. So, as part of a previous subdivision, there had been work done on a road. Previous county road, maintained roads were only in the Stafford subdivision, which is the road that parallels Highway 36. Under a previous subdivision that was never finalized or accepted right here, you can see that there was a road constructed, engineered drawings completed, as well as a subdivision road completed in here, complete with curb and gutter, you know, power, telephone, it is all out there. At the time that the development permit was issued here, we discussed access to this parcel and whatnot, and the applicant, as part of the development process, did hire an engineer to go out, survey this road, verify the structure of it, and it was verified that it did meet county standards for local gravel road, and it was taken over to this point where you can see the mouse moving. Probably about a year, just over a year ago, a year and a half ago. So this road where the mouse is going here is on the county maintained road network. Anything on the property here is not.
So, and when I look at Google Maps or Earth or whatever it is, right about where that starts, where you had your arrow there, there's a path going up that, which would be on the property, but there's also a path going up that, which you can see to the neighboring property to the east, is correct? So they're both kind of going to where, do we maintain the road up to that point?
Currently, we maintain the road up to here. This is a private driveway to an existing residence up here. Right. You can't see under the yellow hash, and I could maybe bring up the web map to show a little clearer. Oh, no, I can't. There's a similar private driveway been installed, approach agreement with the county, culvert installed under the driveway to facilitate the drainage, and a driveway has been constructed up here on private lands.
Further, yep. Trace?
Could I just get some clarification on the encroachment agreement for the pump house? I'm not exactly sure where that is or what that means.
So when we had the surveying done, we learned that this pump house is actually on the property line. There's a fence there now, and with the consolidation that we did, it's kind of a funny piece, as you can see. Like some trading was done before we bought this land, and so this northeast corner was traded for this extra corner on the top here. So the fence, when we consolidated and took this corner in and put it in to the main parcel, it turns out that pump house is on the property line. So Cam Christensen did the surveying for us, and he suggested that rather than an encroachment agreement, we just come up with an access agreement with MCF. that would be cheaper for everybody involved. They wouldn't have to get a real property report and things like that. So he suggested that would probably be a better alternative. And we do, like I said, we have a good relationship with them. We've been renting this land to them for 15 years. So.
Okay, Trace? Okay, Lionel?
So Mayor Morishida had a concern about planning for these types of subdivisions in the INDP. And his point was very valid. I spoke against it at Joint Services, but his point was very valid, that perhaps we need to have some discussions with the city and other partners for maybe some controls in areas like this, because they are very close to Brooks, and someday Brooks may wind up having to deal with it. And we may have to wind up dealing with it someday too, as more and more of these come on stream. So just a comment that that may be a discussion we want to have at some point, to perhaps make some guidelines, I guess, for this type of subdivision. I'm not speaking against this one in particular, but it may be, I think he had a very valid comment there. And,
you always have to weigh living today and future possibilities, and that's always a guessing game. But yeah, point well taken. I had a couple questions. There seems the size of the property, and when I was reading through it, there's some places it says 14.64, and other places it says 16.75. What are we dealing with?
There's a previous subdivision of 2.11 acres. I believe that's the middle on the east rectangle there. Is that what we're talking about there?
Have you got an answer to that, Jeff?
I believe maybe what you're referring to there is the previous requirement for municipal reserve to be paid for the previous subdivisions out of the parcel to the tune of 2.11 acres. So maybe you're referring to the municipal reserve dedication being a greater acreage value than the actual subdivision, but maybe Lenz could comment further on that.
Okay.
No, it looks like that's exactly it, right? The 16.75 acres incorporates that previous subdivision and the reserves to be allocated on it. Typically, though, your subdivisions are 3 to 10 acres in size, so this one is a little larger, and it does reflect, though, the the nature of the property, right? It is a pivot,
double corner.
Yeah.
Jeff?
Just one more comment to the nature of the property and to explain the pump house a little bit further. There's a historic EID canal that ran along this area that my mouse is following here. So that pump house used to sit on the canal bank. There used to be a canal right-of-way that has now also been consolidated back into this parcel as well that doesn't show up here today. So it is a bit of a goofy situation where, historically this EID canal segregated this dry pivot corner here into this, and this dry pivot corner into this parcel.
Further questions? Yes, Alan?
Now, let's say land was given in lieu of the 10% reserve. Does that affect the road? Like if that little piece is given, for example, in lieu of cash, would that affect the road? Then it would be county road, right?
I think you're talking about the meters? Is that where that would be?
Yeah, that skinny piece at the bottom?
Yeah, if you were to adjust the size of the subdivision, bring it down in acreage, yes, then the reserve calculations would be changed, right? And it would be, that approach would still be part of the larger parcel, right? And then they would have to enter into an agreement to have that easement. Okay, the other option obviously is to make a new road and construct it, but that's a little onerous for one residence at this point.
So what was the reason for mentioning the 80 meters?
It was just an option should you want to reduce the size of the parcel and take that southerly tail out. Right, the idea was to basically leave as much agricultural as possible, so you would move it up. They would still come in the same way until such a time as a road would be developed on the adjacent portion to the east.
But as it stands right now, that is not being used for agriculture or developed agriculture.
It isn't.
Right.
It isn't. It just cleans up squares things up a bit,
but creates the additional problem of the right of access.
Yeah, that would be handled then through an easement up until the point of entry into the property.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Ellen, was you're clear? Kelly?
My question was around the MGA. So you mentioned that it does allow for reasons. Can you enlighten me on those?
Okay, section 654 of the MGA, and that's subsection 2, allows for a subdivision authority to approve an application for subdivision approval even though the proposed subdivision does not comply with the land use bylaw, if in its opinion the proposed subdivision would not unduly interfere with the neighborhood and the amenities of the neighborhood, or materially interfere or affect the use, enjoyment, or value of neighboring parcels, and that the proposed subdivision conforms with the use prescribed for that land in the land use bylaw. So it is zoned agriculture, which does allow for residence, right? So there's always an ability for subdivision authorities to, override or decide on the merits of an individual application.
Question, thank you for that. Is this parcel, Lot 1, Block 3, is under title of yours, Mr. Jackson. Is it irrigated? I believe it is.
Yes, there's a pivot on that piece.
So then, will this access road be under pivot? Will it be a hindrance to access?
We'll have to turn off the end gun when it passes the road, but it doesn't. We built it so that it doesn't interfere with the pivot.
Okay. And when you say you own it, is it owned by yourself or by the family?
By a corporation, the family's corporation, Jackson Cattle Company.
Okay, so that does make a difference as well, because that can become messy if the property was ever sold. It's not solely under your care.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Which, if I could just make a comment, I guess that's sort of the reason why we're here, is just, we wanted to sort of make this a clean break and have that be a separate thing from the farm. And the other thing is that to get a mortgage on this property that we're building, this house that we're building, it has to be on less than 20 acres to get a mortgage. Otherwise, we're looking at an ag loan. So a mortgage rate is around 2.5%, an ag loan is around 4.95%. So it's just a huge savings for us in interest. And then I guess the other thing I'd like to say is that, we approached the county with this plan, and we asked for a development permit last year in 2019. And this corner was on a separate title, and we were told that we had to consolidate that corner to get a permit. And I guess we were just a little bit short-sighted. We hadn't talked to the bank enough yet. We didn't realize this deal with the ag loan versus mortgage. So if we would have known that, we wouldn't have consolidated this piece at that time. We would have, worked out access to that piece instead, kind of thing. So we didn't realize what we were up against. We consolidated that piece, and now we're here asking to subdivide and add the road. So,
all live and learn. But as of today, practically it makes, for you, it makes the most sense to have that all in as one, as far as we're, the 14 acres as one, separated from the farm. Have that long piece down there be part of it, which would be your driveway. So I guess, you got to look at what's there today too. So. Wayne?
Is there any way that we can guarantee that if that pivot is sold to somebody else, that he has to keep turning that end gun off? Because if you have an argument with, he'd just say, no, I'm going to leave it on. That's going to mess up that road. Is there some way we can guarantee that the next landowner has to turn it off?
I'm gonna refer, Wayne, to you that we all face that, and the county faces it every day with water on roads, so it's no different. Alan?
Now, do we have to decide as to how the municipal reserve is getting taken care of at this point or not?
We have been given two options.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
And does the owner have a preference?
If I have to come up with $20,000 for this reserve, then we're not going to do it. We're not going to go forward with the subdivision. It doesn't make it economical for us. So I guess we're asking if we can defer that.
Well, if there are no more questions, we need a motion. And we need a motion with how the reserve should be handled. Ellen?
Well, I see it's 2 dry pivot corners, and I don't have a problem with it. I could make a motion, but I'm not sure what we need to be included.
I think as is, and the only options that we have to really put in there is which reserve option, I think, if I'm correct.
I'm sorry, the reserve option?
Well, that would have to be specified with it, yes.
Okay.
And the other conditions are all listed.
Oh, yeah. So
I think that's right, Lenz? If I'm...
Yes, and condition 4 as well. If you decide to go with it as presented, we can strike condition 4 out, right? That was shortening the...
Right.
And making the area smaller, so that's, again, an option for you guys. Right, we can strike it out, or...
Right. No, thank you for that. I missed that part. Condition 4 is stating that we would be reduced in size, which, to my way of thinking, doesn't make a lot of sense. So we need a reserve option with the motion, and we need the striking of the 4th condition.
And 5th, excuse me.
And 5th?
Yeah, because that's, we wouldn't
we
require
wouldn't need
easement.
an easement without
so
that.
we wouldn't need that, exactly.
Correct. And understand, Alan?
yes, I do. I can't find the options all now here with all the paperwork, but...
It's on page 7 of the thing.
So we're going to get rid of option 4, or condition 4, correct?
Yeah, and condition 5 deals with condition 4, so both of those will be gone if we do not reduce the size of the parcel.
Correct. So that would be my motion, not to make it smaller and opposed to defer. And how long will it be deferred for? Do we know? The municipal reserve?
Lenz, I'll let you answer that.
It would be deferred until such a time as other subdivision would be applied for, right? And then we would deal with it again.
So that would be my motion then.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions about the motion? Everyone understands? Lance?
Just one final point. Condition 3 deals with an encroachment agreement for the pump house. The applicant has another option, and you know, it's basically a private contractual arrangement. So maybe you can highlight what that option was again, and if that's.
Yeah, I guess if it was okay with council, we would ask that we just change the wording on that, and we would request an access agreement arrangement with the adjacent landowner versus an encroachment agreement.
But it's his pump house.
Yes, and it's on our land.
And it's on your land. And access is only talks about access. Encroachment is signifying that that's his pump house. Now that's what I am. Lens, you're more with that than I am.
That's correct. However, it is usually, I mean, this is a contractual thing between two landowners. It really has no bearing on the county, you know, what occurs there. So you could leave, you know, encroachment agreement or access agreement.
I'm just following advice from the surveyor. Sure. I'm certainly not an expert in these matters, so.
But we as a MPC would want to make sure that that owners of the property to your north are protected, that they don't have to move this pump house. So whatever the wording is, I mean, I'm not a legal person, but we need wording that says that protects him. Correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So you could leave encroachment agreement and see where that falls. Okay.
Trace?
My question was in regards to how difficult would it be to move this pump house? Like, I'm sure that there's underground stuff in there, but can it be moved at all, that it's not encroaching the property line?
I haven't looked into that at all, but I just assumed that it would be difficult for the landowner, and that I wouldn't want to push that issue.
The other option, of course, is to draw the line in a different spot. But then it's not straight anymore, so. As it stands, we have an encroachment agreement as one of the conditions, and I would suggest that we keep that. Are you ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It is passed. Mr. Jackson, you have the right to go on.
Thank you very much. Thanks for everyone's time.
Okay, development permits. First one, Shanali.
Development permit 2019093 is for the installation of a manufactured dwelling 2 with an addition. It's going to be in the Deer Run Estates. There's no variances requested by the applicant. The manufactured dwelling is a 1999 Ridgeline and is being moved from Sagebrush Estates. The planning and development staff recommend the minimum security deposit of $5,000. There was no issues or concerns from staff. There was no response from adjacent landowners, and the IDP recommended approval. We're recommending approval with conditions, and Mr. Harris is here to answer any questions.
Mr. Harris, do you have anything to add? Okay. Questions from MPC? Ready to approve? Ask for a motion. Trace?
I'll make the motion for approval.
Approval as suggested by staff. Any further discussion? All in favor? That is done. Going on to the second development permit, Channelie.
Development permit 2019097 is an application for an existing manufactured home 2 to be used as a second dwelling on the site. The second dwelling is to accommodate employees. According to assessment records, this dwelling was installed in approximately 1979, which was previous to a land use bylaw. The landowner installed an additional manufactured home in 2016, which was brought to the attention of staff by our tax assessor. It was requested that the landowner submit an application for the existing dwellings in order to bring the entire parcel into compliance, which would include these two applications, which is the one I'm currently discussing and the one to follow. And there was the primary dwelling was approved in January. The administration section of the land use bylaw states the second dwelling unit must be occupied by the owner. The owner is requesting a variance to this regulation as his manager of the farm operation lives in the primary dwelling, not himself. There was no issues or concerns from staff. There was no response from adjacent landowners, and we're recommending approval with conditions.
Any questions from MPC? I ask for a motion then. Wayne? Wayne moves as recommended by staff. All in favor? That is also passed. Going on to the next one on this issue.
Development permit 2019098 is for the same location as the previous one that I just went over. It's for an existing manufactured home 2. It again asking for a variance for the landowner living on the parcel. In addition, asking for a variance that it be the third dwelling, not the second dwelling on the parcel. There was no comments from adjacent landowners. There was no issues with staff, and we're recommending approval with conditions.
Questions? Ask for a motion then. Yubi? Yubi moves as suggested. All in favor? That is also passed. And now we go on to a request for a refund. And this is also kind of tied to this particular issue. Yes, Channelie.
The County of Newell landowner is requesting to be reimbursed for fees paid to the County of Newell for 2 existing dwellings and 1 new dwelling that we just discussed. Currently, the Planning and Development Department requires the landowner to bring all non-conforming buildings into compliance by obtaining a development permit for each building before any further developments can happen on the property. The Planning and Development Department would like to change the current process by allowing legal non-conforming buildings to remain as is and not require a development permit when a new development is proposed on the same parcel. We've provided 2 options for this one. One would be to leave it as status quo and the money that has been received would stay as is. The second option would be to refund the $225 paid for the 2 non-conforming buildings on the parcel. And going forward, the policy would be that non-conforming buildings do not need a development permit when a development takes place.
So this is just for grandfathering, stuff that's been built before?
Correct.
Comments from MPC? What is your wish?
So,
Molly?
Just for clarity, is this to change it going forward for all of these ones, or is this just for this particular application? Do we do it application by application?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
We would like to change it going forward, that this would be this would be the case for this application, but going forward we would use the same rules as we're asking in this one.
So my understanding is, if we weren't considering this going forward, there wouldn't be an ask for a refund, because Kanagawas came ahead. You said, well, the way it is today, this is how you have to go. He went along with it. You've recognized that this is perhaps a bit onerous and perhaps no need for it, and then are asking for a change in policy. Correct?
That is correct.
Is that understood? Trace?
Yeah, that was kind of my first thought on it, was that to grant this request for refund is prior to any policy change. And I think that we could get into possibly a whole bunch coming back to saying, well, I paid a development permit and it was the same situation. Because we haven't changed the policy, I don't agree with giving the refund at this time.
So we're dealing with two things. We're dealing with, do we refund this particular case, and and also the policy. But you're putting the two together. More comments, Anne-Marie.
I seem to remember that we started with the development permits even before the land use bylaw, so we would have a record of all the developments we have in our county. We wanted to know where the houses were, where the structures were, and so that's why we started the development permit process for older houses too. I am not sure what we decided on the permit fee to get that done.
The permit fee that we charge is the same for an existing house as it is for a new development.
So further to what Tracy said, your concern is, the information here says that 74 development permits have been issued for existing structures, and 64 of those were for buildings constructed prior to the land use bylaw. So people had to pay money to get those. We didn't grandfather any of those, correct? So is there some particular reason that this one triggered a change to this? It is a little confusing to put the two together, for me anyhow, as well.
Go ahead.
This letter kind of triggered this policy change, potential policy change. So prior to this letter coming, anytime someone wanted to build a shop or anything new, if they had any buildings on their parcel that was built prior to the land use bylaw, then they had to pay full price for development permits for their house built in 1930 and their Quonset that was there when it was an agriculture piece and then was subdivided off, and so now it requires a permit. So people could be paying, substantially more for a shop in development permits when they have, say, an older farmstead. And this also increases the number of variances that come to MPC. So all the 10-foot variance requests that, not all of them obviously, but that come to you for existing buildings are usually because they were constructed prior to the land use bylaw. So when this letter came in, we thought, well, why don't we see how this goes, how you respond to the refund request, and then we could look at when someone wants to build a shop on their land that meets the land use bylaw, then we'll be okay. We'll make note that they have a grandfathered house that's legal, non-conforming, and they can still build this shop with just one development permit. So that was the idea behind this.
So if your chairman had been a little smarter, he would have rearranged the order of the meeting. So if we had talked about this before, we had approved what we just did, we would have a different situation. Is that not almost?
Not necessarily, because if you approved the buildings as is, it's gone, we did it the way that it has always been done. But now that the landowner is requesting a refund for the development permits for the houses that were built prior to the land use bylaw, that's when we can decide now, do we keep it status quo as we've always been doing it? He should pay for the development permits. His whole parcel now is considered compliant. And his next development, then he will only have to get one development permit. Or do we say, well, you know, those are old houses. He didn't require a development permit at the time. Now he's building something new. So let's just charge him for that one development permit for the new structure. So you could go either way.
Well, I just go back to, we've had 64 permits that have already gone through that are in the same situation. So we've already charged all those people as is. So I still go to stand that I'm not in favor of a refund.
I think it would be advantageous for us to separate the two. First, let's go to, do we from this day forward not charge for the old developments? Is that policy change? Can we discuss? Yes, that's what you're requesting. So can we talk about that? We are the policy setting organization, so do we change the policy? Kelly.
I propose that we do not change the policy. I think that we have a path set, a direction set, and I think we need to follow through with that.
Okay, Ellen?
I see it differently, respectfully. I believe, why should they be penalized for rules that were not in place prior, and all of a sudden they want to build something different and they have to start paying for something that's 30 or 50 years old? I'm in favor of changing the policy, and then we don't have to worry about old existing structures that were built before the land use bylaw.
Maria?
Sorry, just to clarify, it's not a policy, it's the procedure that we have been using in the past. So yeah.
If it's procedure, why are you asking us?
Because of this letter that came in, and we could just change it, I suppose. But I think we have to get direction from council as to, like Tracy said, you know, do we want to do it like it has been done before? You guys want to see all these old houses and variance requests come to MPC? There's a investment, I suppose, that developers are required to do right now that is maybe not necessary. So we just want council's direction for that going forward, because it is a change from what has been done in the past.
Lionel.
Well, I think also in our directive that we've sort of been following at the county is that we need a user pay system, and this would ensure that we weren't covering the costs. That people come in, request different services, I think they should pay. Because we wind up, you know, in tighter and tighter financial times. I think, yes, I like the idea of a user pay system, so I would continue charging.
Please.
So just to clarify, so if someone came in for a development permit, you found that there was some structures there that were prior land use bylaw, you would still be able to document it and keep track of the older infrastructure?
Currently, our procedure is that if somebody comes in for a development permit, then everything else on the parcel that should have a development permit for today's land use bylaw, we would have them obtain one at that time and pay for each of them before they could go forward. We could definitely come up with a procedure where we could track them if we were going to do it a different way. We just have to figure it out, but I'm sure we could.
Let's throw something else in there. We have ag buildings all over the place that we have nothing about. We don't need a permit to build them, as long as they're within so far off the road and so forth. How do you want to treat them? Yeah.
I have a question. This is to bring all non-conforming, legal non-conforming, is that the words that you use? So what are illegal and conforming? Or like, I'm imagining things now, but what would illegal be?
Well, we've discussed this quite frequently the last little while, talking about this. Legal non-conforming would be anything that was built either prior to a land use bylaw, so they could do what they want, and that was all good.
And so the land use makes it non-conforming?
Non-conforming, exactly. So
because there's a land use, okay.
Yeah, what would happen is if there was a house that was built, say, in the 1930s prior to the land use bylaw. As it sits, it's legal non-conforming. They can use that house as is. When they want to add to it or change its use, then they would have to bring it up to compliance. They would need to make it a conforming building, so then they would have to come in and get a development permit at that time when they wanted to change what it was. A non-legal building, it wouldn't be non-conforming, non-legal, would be a building that was constructed while there was a land use bylaw and they didn't get permits, they didn't follow the guidelines set out in the land use bylaw. So for those, right now, when that happens, we charge double. So they come in, say, well, you know, we did this, and so they do require a development permit, and they are charged double.
Anne-Marie, help us out of this mess.
I'm still thinking about that we want a record of buildings we have in our county. So when you brought up ag buildings, I thought, well, maybe that's something we have to look at too. Whether they pay or not pay, but we need to know what's out there. And so how do you do that if you don't have a permitting system in place?
Maria, answer your mother.
We are using assessment data right now to find out when houses were constructed and if they're there or not. So granted, that is on a 5-year rotation. So there's 5 years in there that we might not have everything. But that's kind of what we are using right now to help us with ages and when things were constructed.
Okay, we've kicked this around. Staff has asked us for a different procedure. We should give some kind of direction. So I'm looking for a motion. Trace.
Okay, I'm going to make the motion that we go with option 1, that the procedures and policies continue status quo and therefore not providing a refund to the landowner.
Okay. The motion has been made. Does anybody else want to put in their 2 cents worth? Alan?
like you said prior, I still think you can have a record, like you said, of buildings that have been there before without penalizing ratepayers that really didn't have a say about this in the first place when they're older. So, yeah, I'm going to vote against the motion.
Anyone else? Molly?
I'm not sure how I'm going to vote just yet, but I think it would be good to have a further conversation. Are there other things that we should be looking at to do some streamlining that I would prefer to get ahead of this if we're going to start, making some changes like this, that it would be, maybe this conversation should be held along with some other things in planning and development that to streamline or make it easier somehow. That for me would be easier than having an application and then this request, and all of a sudden we have to make a decision if we're going to change it for everyone. So I think I'm leaning towards supporting the concept of leaving it as is, but I would like to talk about it at another time.
If I might make a comment first, I think what voting against it is basically the same as postponing it for now. We have been asked for input. We're a little bit iffy on how we should go, so I think we need some time, but that's probably, it's kind of like tabling it for now. Anyway.
Just wanted to ask Lens, while you're in the room, from your experience, how has something like this been handled in other jurisdictions? Generally.
Generally, I can't answer that without doing a little bit of research or looking into it, because each municipality does things a little differently, right? So I have no comment on that one.
Ria?
What Len said, we did look at a few different municipalities, and everyone's doing it a little bit differently as well. So, yeah, there's no one way, right way or wrong way. It's all different.
But you are recommending what you've put forward.
I think that it would reduce the amount of permits that come to MPC, that you have to, it's an existing building and you have to decide whether you're okay with the variance. And it's a house or a shop that has been there for years. So the option really would be to approve it or demolish it. So that's my opinion.
Okay. Trace?
Just one further comment in sort of tying this in my mind is that planning staff are looking at, maybe how to make things better, how to make things more streamlined. I think this is one little step that they're looking at. I think that, like Molly, you said, there's probably other things that you see that could be changed. And I would like to have that come back. Maybe this should be made into a policy, how you deal with development permits. But I still believe that we still have the item on the table today that doesn't reflect what that will be.
Okay, ready for the question? Anne-Marie.
Can I hear the motion? I know it's option 1. I just want to hear it again.
No, I have to find it.
I have it here if you like, Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
That the procedures and policies continue status quo, therefore not providing a refund to the landowner.
Very much.
Can I just...
Go ahead.
I just like to add, though, I would like to talk about this again, and as along with anything else that we might be looking at too. I mean, maybe it could be a reduced rate. There's other ways of dealing with it if we want to have a record, or I don't know. But I would like to have another conversation.
Good comments. I think we all feel that way. There's no post-agenda items, and there's nothing in camera. Is there any other questions? Question period. Okay, this has gone long enough. We will adjourn the meeting.
So just a reminder to council that we are right at delegations, 11 o'clock. So in order that we don't keep people waiting for too long, we'll try and get organized to head quickly into delegations, because Len's and planning folks, Len's, are you planning to be around after lunch? I'm just looking at 11 o'clock. We have scheduled delegations. They're here. So maybe before lunch, 11:30, we'll get back to her. So thank you. All right, I think I'm going to call the meeting to order. Ariana, you're ready to go? No one is excused from the meeting. Could we have an adoption of the minutes from February 6th? Hubie? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Are there any post-agenda items? Adoption of the agenda. Anne-Marie moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And so we're going to go right to our delegation for 11 o'clock, which is the RCMP quarterly reports, and that is item 8.1. Yeah, I was thinking we can probably do it under committee reports. If it does, if it's, yeah.
Your Worship, Council, thank you for having me. Happy New Year. I don't think I've seen anybody since last year, so Happy New Year to you all.
You're back.
First off, I have a guest with me today that I'd like to introduce to all of you. This is Ms. Kendra Sieben. She's our new Safe Communities Coordinator for the City of Brooks and County of Newell. Kendra comes to us from Red Deer, Alberta, where she finished up her diploma in social work. And Kendra has rural roots. She hails from Macklin, Saskatchewan. That's where she grew up, and her parents' farm out there. Is that correct? And there you go. I don't know if you have any questions for Kendra, but.
Hi, Kendra. We'll do some introductions, actually, because we are a big council that represent a large area of the county, and I know I met you at the one of the meetings I was at this month, local immigration policy meeting, I think it was. So I'm Molly Douglas, and I'm from the northern part of the county, out by the Red Deer River, the Gem, Finnegan, Duck Lake area. And we'll move over here to the right to Lionel.
Good morning, Kendra. I'm Lionel Juss. I like it when we get people from Saskatchewan. They're genuine people. So I represent Division 10, which is north and east of Brooks.
Okay. Hello again, Kendra. We've met before at Rural Crime and Safe Communities. Hubie Callan, Division 2.
Good morning, I'm Tracy Fife, and I represent the area south and west around Brooks, so Lake Newell Resort, Castles, Antelope Creek, that area.
Hi, Kendra. Anne-Marie Phillipson, and I'm from the Patricia area.
Okay.
Brian DeJong, and I represent the area around the village of Dutchess, and I do have a question for you. What part do you play in your annual Bunnocks tournament in Macklin? Everybody in that town volunteers for that event, and it's so awesome, but I was just curious what you do.
So after I moved to Red Deer, I didn't get to volunteer as much because I couldn't make it down because of sports that I played. But when I'm down there, I am usually doing something with the kids. So I know for the longest time they were fundraising for their first pool in Macklin. So we were doing these basically candy sales and stuff like that. And for some reason they kind of contributed a lot of money to that. But I was definitely a part of a lot of the kid-related activities there. But
You might have to tell these people how you play Bunnocks.
Yeah, it's a German game that's it's a big deal in Macklin, and they have a worldwide tournament, and it's a really small town, so it's a huge deal every summer, and it is essentially a game that you play where it's two lines of bones facing each other, and I could not tell you how far apart they are. I can't remember. I know that it's 15 paces, but yeah. And it's two blue ones and a bunch of white ones. You have to hit the blue ones, and then you hit the white ones, but if you hit the white ones before the blue ones, it gets harder and harder because, there's a whole bunch of rules, but it's a really, really fun game.
You guys get 300 teams? And the bones are horse bones.
Yeah, they're horse ankles that have...
the ankle bones on a horse.
Yes.
I'm not a horse person, but I figure it's the only good use of a horse.
Yeah.
That's from a dairy farmer, and my dad always said there'll never be another horse on our place. So anyway, it sounds like you'll fit in just great to our community.
Perfect.
Clarence Amulong, and I live in Rolling Hills.
Morning, welcome. I'm Kevin Stevenson, County Administrator. Spent lots of time in Macklin years ago playing against your Macklin Mohawks.
That's awesome.
Morning, I'm Kelly Chrisman, and I'm from the west side of the county around Bassano.
Nice.
Morning, Wayne Hammergan from Division 4, which is Scandia, Rainier, and Bow City.
Good morning, I'm Ellen Unruh, and I represent Division 7 around the village of Rosemary.
Awesome.
Good morning, Ariana Nielsen, Executive Assistant.
Lane Johnson, the Director of Corporate Services.
Hey, Kendra.
So, Your Worship, if it pleases Council, since we've already introduced Kendra, would you like her to roll right into her report first?
Sure.
Okay.
Awesome. So, I I tried to change this up from my actual report that I give every month to the committee, but generally I'm not sure what I'm just going to wing it because I did not get a layout of what Jolene used to give a report for, so if some of it is a little bit irrelevant, I apologize. As far as the crime mapping for the detachment that we've been doing, I have a course booked in April, I believe. No, actually, that's the one I need pros for.
Yeah, you'll be having that down.
Yeah, so that's in about 2 weeks. I'll be getting the pros course in Calgary, and then I will be qualified to take that back over, just like Jolene used to. As far as media relations, again, I have a course booked in April so that I can take over the press releases and media relations for the detachment. As far as community relations, we have a community consultation that we are in the midst of kind of setting in stone that we're doing with the RCMP on March 23rd. And we're hoping to do that at the Heritage Inn, but again, we have yet to set that in stone. Car seat clinics that we're doing out of the fire hall in Brooks continue to be a pretty good success. We've had pretty good turnout, especially since we've been posting the dates and information on our Facebook page as events. So that's kind of helping to get awareness out about that. So our Welcoming and Inclusive Committee that I'm also a part of, that's kind of with the Safe Communities Committee, is planning a soccer tournament on March 22nd for the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination at the JBS Center. We have various teams taking part from the RCMP, from the JBS Center, from the city, just kind of trying to get everybody involved. It's totally free of charge. We're just trying to get some awareness out there that day some people don't even know that it exists. So doing all we can for that. In my first month in this job, we discussed at my first Safe Communities meeting kind of the topic of mental health services in Brooks. So I ended up posting a poll on our Facebook page asking if people perceived a lack of certain mental health services in Brooks. And there was a 92% result of yes. So I did a follow-up post asking, okay, well, if you see a need for it, what do you see a need for? And I got a pretty overwhelming response, whether it was comments or I got emails or like private messages, and people were really passionate about what they would like to see the same or different or improved. And a lot of it had to do with the rural areas, so a lot of it had to do with accessibility and availability. And since there's not that many counselors in Brooks, it's really hard to get an appointment, and when you do get an appointment, you have to drive all the way into Brooks. So there's people in the surrounding municipalities that feel that there is a lack of availability to them and accessibility, because it's almost like a day thing where you have to drive into town and your whole day is gone just to attend an hour-long session with a counselor. So I'm kind of touching base with a couple people in Brooks that I've been getting in contact with to see if there's anything that we can do to address that, because I know that that would be really handy. I've been talking to someone from Victim Services in Brooks that knows a psychologist from Medicine Hat that a while back mentioned that she might be willing to come in and provide those sessions at a subsidized cost if she's provided a free space. And I know that we would have one in Brooks, but we're kind of looking around about that for the surrounding areas, because I learned very quickly that the county of Newell is very large, so it's not just like a tiny little county like it would be in Red Deer where I'm from. So yeah, other than the accessibility and stuff, as far as in Brooks and kind of closer to Newell, they were talking about maybe getting more workshops or supports within schools. And a lot of people said that they wish that there was a hub for mental health resources and all those kind of resources, because they're not sure where to go when they don't know where to go. So as far as what I'm doing immediately, we are doing a feature once a week on our Facebook page, because that seems to be where we're getting the most involvement from the public and a lot more engagement from people. So once a week we're going to be posting about agencies and stuff like that that people might not know about, because some of those messages that I received or emails were saying, I wish we had this service, but we actually do. And so I think a big key part of that is awareness. Moving on to community presentations, myself, along with a few other officers, have been planning presentations for various groups in and out of Brooks. We've been out in Tilly at the school. We've been in some seniors groups in Dutchess. A lot of it has to do with requesting like scam and fraud prevention presentations. So people want to make sure that they're up to date on what those can be. Other than that, we had the Rural Crime Watch AGM this past February 8th. And, we are planning, me and Corporal Argue are planning an appearance at the Bow Slope Cattle Auction on April 3rd. And basically, we're going to go set up a table. It will be me, a member from the county, a member from Fish and Wildlife, and obviously Corporal Argue, and we are hoping to just set up a table there and give those people that might not be in the city very often, might not get access to those presentations or resources as often, and they just have the opportunity to come and ask any of us questions, get up to date, get information, so we'll have a big table full of information for them, because since they may never come into the city or they might not use social media or any of those things, that'll be a good good opportunity to kind of make sure everyone's up to date, because we need to be reaching out to them and not expecting them to always come to us, because they might not know that they should be coming to us for those things. Our Rural Crime Watch right now, we are exploring options to update our messaging system, because some people aren't entirely happy with the emails or the fan out call system. Some people are wanting kind of like an alert system, but from what I am finding out right now, it's basically you can either you can kind of pay for something that is a bit more than we need, or we're gonna have to stick with like text messages, emails, that kind of thing. So I'm still exploring options for that, but we're hoping to kind of update that, because some people want more of an alert typed thing. They don't want to check their email the next day and see, well, this was happening last night. Yeah, the last thing on here is the bike rodeo this year. So we are just sending out the invitations now to see what schools are taking part. I know we will be in Rolling Hills and Bassano this year, as far as the rural areas. And once we accommodate those schools, we will see if any other schools in the rural area are interested in having it again this year, but we try and rotate our, I guess, priority schools every year. So that'll be happening end of May, beginning of June. But that is about it for what I have in my report for this meeting.
Thanks, Kendra. Are you aware of the mental health conference that is being?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Second year for that. Yeah. Good. That's different, obviously, but it's a good.
Yeah, it's definitely
good
really
for providers and the public. Clarence.
So if you're aware of that, you're also probably aware of FCSS.
Of what, sorry?
FCSS?
Yes.
You've met Len?
Yeah.
Okay. Because when you start talking about people being aware of what's available, we find that as one of the big challenges in the community. And we've taken some steps to try and make sure that all our different volunteer organizations work together and know what each other are doing, and so they can recommend between each other. And
yeah, absolutely.
And I see that there's certainly links between what you're doing and what FCSS is doing, and so encourage that relationship.
Yeah.
Kelly.
And I just want to extend that out to the west side. Victoria at the town office in Bassano is our FCSS director, and so I'm hoping that you'll make a trip out and have a visit, and
absolutely.
Maybe you can collaborate with her as well.
Absolutely. They're actually, I have a little bit of a schedule written up for who...
Who's who in the zoo?
Yeah, and a schedule for the features on our page, so I can make sure and be giving heads up and have the write-ups ready. And FCSS is actually our third up, and I'm hoping to do them in the first week of March. So I'm definitely going to be touching base with a lot of representatives from FCSS right away here.
All right. Thanks, Kendra. Bruce.
Okay, I'll move into my report. So I'm just gonna cover off the last the year end for 2019. I won't speak too much about 2020 until my next report for the first quarter. So in my little corner of the county here, we did see an overall 15% increase in rural crime. How that kind of breaks down, we saw a 14% increase in property crime. And specifically, we had 11 more break and enters over 2018. I can say that theft of motor vehicles is down, and overall thefts are down. So kind of what brought that increase up was our other criminal code, and in particular, weapons offenses were up 233%. That sounds like a pretty ominous number, but when we break it down to the hard numbers, in 2019, we charged 10 people in the county with weapons offenses, and then we had 20 charges of failed to comply with breaches or failing to comply with conditions versus 9 charges over 2019. So those charges, percentage-wise, looks big, but numeric-wise, not aggravating. We are trending down for the first month of 2020, so we are trending down. We're seeing, and I think Sebastian can speak a bit more to this, but we are seeing an increase in our copper wire thefts again. We have engaged our rural crew team and also our Brooks GIS crew team to K Division and South Alberta District has specifically started a copper wire, I don't know if you want to call it task force, or they've assigned members to specifically deal with this copper wire theft of oil fields and everything else. So they're targeting the known offenders that do this. They're specifically targeting recyclers who are buying this stuff that know they shouldn't be. Because I've said this in many other council meetings before, is that somebody's buying this stuff, that's where we have to start. So finally, between Calgary Police, Edmonton Police, and the RCMP, and the province, they are going after these recyclers who are buying the stolen copper cable. So hopefully the plan is the recyclers are going to get hammered hard for buying this stuff. The people stealing it aren't going to have a place to sell it. So it's not going to be worth it to them to be stealing it. That being said, it's still happening in our county, and we're working on it. I want to speak about break-and enters because that's always a concern. In my corner of the county, 2018 we had 27. 2019 that was up to 38. Now these are, keep in mind, these are attempted or completed, not necessarily completed B&Es, but we had 38 reported B&Es. That includes residential and commercial. I can tell you our residential B&Es, the commercial side is higher than the residential side. So we're not seeing a lot of people's houses being broken into, but we are seeing those commercial B&Es in the county. So that's my concern is property crime, and that's going to be my focus going into the first quarter of this year. As Kendra mentioned, it's again annual performance planning time. So I'll be speaking to Mr. Stevenson about that, and we are having the City of Brooks. We're having that community consultation the end of March. I'm looking at doing a rural one. We kind of broached the topic at the Rural Crime Watch AGM, but with that group, you kind of see the same faces all the time, so it doesn't necessarily reach out to the broader county. So I am looking with Kendra to have a rural crime form, a planning form for the upcoming APP, and we haven't looked at a date or location for that, but we're going to start working on that here shortly. And then when we have I'll speak about priorities for that plan in the next meeting that we get together with. But I'll keep it short. That's about all I have for now. Does anybody have any questions for me? Or?
So how broad is your buyers for copper? Like, I mean, do you go into, you got Cooperation Saskatchewan, that type of thing, or is it more local?
The buyers, I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Well, typically we find we have a great relationship with Brooks Metal Recyclers in Brooks. They know who the bad guys are. They take ID. They won't buy stolen copper typically. These guys are going to Calgary, the bigger centers, Calgary. I don't know if there's specifically one in Medicine Hat, but it's these traveling criminals that travel from the centers and and steal the copper, and then they go back to the big centers and sell it. And typically, they go to the same recyclers who don't give a shit and they'll buy it. And those are the ones that we're trying to crack down on, right? So it's a work in progress. We've identified a couple of prolific offenders that are in and out of Cypress County. As a matter of fact, as of today, some of my members are heading down to the south of the county to deal with one guy that we're trying to move along back to the city. So, but we're working on that as we speak.
Any other questions for Bruce? Thank you, Bruce. Sebastian.
So for Bassano's third quarter, mine may be a little bit longer because I'm looking to also talk to you about our priorities for Bassano for 2020. So our third quarter ended in December 31st. For our priorities, one was community visibility, which most of our communities were big on. We had 37 school visits. That includes Bassano, Gem, Rosemary, and the County of Newell. There's quite a few colonies that we do visit. We have almost 9 or 10. 17 major events participations. We held a Gem Town Hall meeting in December. I believe Molly was in attendance there. It was quite well received, and we plan for the new year to do town halls in all of our communities. And I'm looking to do it in specific. I'll go more into it as I go on, but I'd like to do in Bassano on mental health. We've seen a huge increase in mental health for us, for our calls, and what kind of options are for the residents there, as well as you know, a lot of them report to you and live in the county that we deal with as well. We also attended the Bassano and Rosemary Remembrance Day, Christmas Parade. During the holidays, Christmas and January, everyone knows that we usually see a lot more police making people blow for impaired. So we had a partnership with local business Tom Rowe Subway, and for everyone on Friday and the weekend for the month of December who had a designated driver or was sober, they received a coupon to a free sub. It's kind of a way of bridging the gap, because I know it's still a new thing that we're making people do, helps with community relations, and so that we did that. We passed out over 40 or 50. Unfortunately, for a lot of residents, we didn't do it Monday through Thursday when I'm sure everyone was sober. During our patrols and check stops, we got one impaired on actually the holidays in Rosemary, so it did help keep the residents safe. I had all members out during that time. We had 122 proactive rural crime patrols, and as I explained before, what that is at least 35 to 45 minutes in our rural areas. Although Bassano's crime isn't high, we do have a large area, and a lot of residents, especially rural and farm residents, feel they don't see police all the time, they feel unsafe. So we've increased these patrols. And so we had 122 during those 3 months. And in my little table, you'll see how we break it up between each community where we're at. We're continuing to do our new communication strategy. And what that is local news reports as well as social media reports. And that's through myself doing Facebook posts and posts for residents in all our area to let them know, for instance, if there's an accident, to be careful if the roads are bad. Notable occurrences, we had 15 motor vehicle collisions, and 2 of these resulted in 3 fatalities. We've noticed an increase in fatalities on the 2 entrances of Bassano on Highway 1. So me and the Bassano Council have written a letter to the MLA looking to see if they can reduce that speed in that intersection, or if not, add more signage. I know that takes a lot of time, and that could be 10 years from now, but at least we can increase. We have seen an increase in collisions on that area. Actually, at one point, while my members were out there, we almost had a member get killed because of the speeds are so high on that corner, and when fog rolls in, semis and trucks can't see us there, even when our lights and sirens on. We've done 3 financial fraud warrants and laid 1 charge. As you know, Bassano and all of our areas in the County of Newell is a rural off of Highway 1, so you have a lot of people from Calgary and Medicine Hat that come through, steal driver's license and stuff, and do identity theft. So we've been pushing that quite a bit. We have a member who's written over 6 warrants now and laid quite a bit of charges for fraud. So, and as Bruce alluded to, copper theft is a big problem. We had a 25% decrease in crime in Bassano, but a huge increase in copper theft. And most of our major centers aren't actually in the County of Newell. but it affects your residents because a lot of these people are coming from Calgary, Medicine Hat, and stealing vehicles, and they drop their vehicle wherever they run out of gas, and they're stealing vehicles from local residents, as well as these people are committing other crimes as they come through. So, as I stated in the last meeting, we've started an intelligence program, but we also have tried a new approach as well. We're contacting all of our major copper, our oil field facilities, and had a meeting with them. Tips and trips, better cameras, security, trying to get them to help prevent. Because the truth is, some of these places are 30, 40 kilometers away from our main units, and it's in the middle of the night and they don't have security systems. By the time we get the call, they're gone. So we've been trying to increase communication with our oil field sites to get them to be more prepared. We've also, right now we're running an operation in one of our sites. I can't really go into details, where we're looking, that's been hit quite a few recently. So we're looking to try and prevent that. As said, Brooks is not actually a recycling facility, doesn't take much stolen. They're actually really good. Our major issue is Calgary. And there actually is a certain company that we're working on that's pretty bad for it. They're also coming up with new ways. There's a machine that you can buy. It's about $10,000 or $12,000 that we've noticed, where it rips the jacket from the copper wire, and they're actually using people at homes. So we're trying to look into see home-based, because some of these facilities aren't taking. They used to burn the copper. They're not taking burned copper anymore. So they're being a little bit more strict. So some of these houses are starting to do copper this way. It's an easy way for some of these people to make money. So we're just trying to work and get ahead of the edge. And our main issue is there's facilities that still don't care. For them, they give them pennies on the dollars and they make a lot more money. Now for mental health, like I alluded to before, we have seen an increase in Bassano and some of the other residents of mental health calls. And a lot of the times we get the first call and we're doing transportations. But once we transport them to a medical designated facility, which is either Medicine Hat or Calgary, they come back in a day or two and they still don't have access to the counseling. A lot of them have to drive to Brooks in certain areas for mental health work. And the issue is a lot of the times with mental health comes poverty as well. So getting the help for them is very hard. So we're seeing an increased amount especially in our area, of mental health calls where we're bringing them to Medicine Hat. They're getting these appointments, but there's so many appointments in Brooks and certain areas that they're waiting 3-4 months for help. And some of these people need help right away. So I'm looking to try and partner with some of the mental health workers to see if there's a better system. There's not much the RCMP can do for actual, we don't do counseling, that kind of stuff. But we're always the first responders to these. Recently, we had a major incident in a business where someone was having a problem and made major threats to shoot up the place. It was a problem. We dealt with it, but this person doesn't have access to the help because they don't have the money or the ability. And sometimes in mental health, it's very hard to have to drive and then go get the help. So we're trying to work to bridge the gap, but unfortunately, Bassano isn't a designated facility, nor is Brooks. They're there, they can't take them if they need to be held there. We have to take them to either Medicine Hat or Calgary. So we've seen a huge increase for us in transports, which is a huge liability on us as the RCMP, as well as everyone else. So we're trying to work to have some more resources available to them, but we can only do so much from our point. So that's what we're looking for Bassano to do a town hall and some of our other rural areas about mental health and what resources are available. Now, as I move past the third quarter, I'd like to talk about, it's already Q1 coming up soon here in April, and some of the priorities that I chose for your areas is community engagement, which would be same as before, school visits, community events, more of a police presence. And I believe I sent an email to Molly and the CEO to present it to you guys, as well as safe roads. What that means is we're checking for stolen vehicles. A lot of the times, like I said, these people who are committing crimes are in stolen vehicles. So we've already started a program where we have a local SO in certain gas stations where we're running all the plates, and recently someone who had a stolen vehicle and almost $30,000 to $40,000 worth of stolen stuff in his vehicle, including snowmobiles, snow blowers, as well as impaired enforcement. As you know, we've had 8 impaireds for 3 months, and we're up to about 27 impaired since April. So we've increased quite a bit of impaired. So that means more officers on the road, making sure people are safe, keeping the community and your residents safe. Rural property crime, that's going to be a priority as well. So this includes for us increasing rural patrols in your rural areas. Enhanced focus on residents' property, vehicles, and homes. that's with our town hall meetings, warning residents to lock your vehicles, to report suspicious people. Since we've done these reports, we've had a lot more calls of suspicious people, and they've actually, just before I got here, I have a call of a suspicious person, and they had some warrants. So it is working. We just need to increase us seeing us there and the community helping us out as well, because we can't be there all the time. We need residents to call us if they see someone suspicious, and that way we can attend. So those would be my 3 priorities for next fiscal. And my question to you as the council is if you agree with this or you want to change it, I'm willing to work with you guys that we can come to agreement. That's, for me right now, that's it.
Okay. Any feedback for Sebastian? They sound like reasonable goals, pretty normal things to be continuing to work at. Any comments from council? Anne-Marie?
Just to say good job.
Thank you.
There was a good report. Well, all of you.
Yeah.
Anything else? Kevin?
And we've just got a question, Sebastian. How do you guys count patrols? You said there's 122.
Yes.
Is that one patrol per shift, or how does a patrol counted?
How it's tracked is, so my members we have what we do is Bassano, Rosemary, Gem, and Nassar. So what they do is on their shift, they need to pick some community that they're going to patrol today. They need to patrol that area. When they do complete that patrol, they write it down on a board for me, and I track it. So that's what it consists of.
And they have more than one patrol in a day?
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes we have members who'll do 3.
Okay,
3
thanks.
community. Most of the time, we already were doing these patrols, but we just weren't tracking it.
Okay,
and we weren't showing the community what we were doing.
Thank you.
If I can just piggyback on that. So in Brooks, what we're doing, and this may be rolled out division-wide, is that there's a telephone app now where our members can track where they go. So on the Brooks side of the house, I haven't discussed it with Sebastian, but we're going to have our members, they're doing rural patrols, track it on this app so that I can go into this app and I can see how many patrols were made, what time of day they were made, what communities or areas of the county they were made in, so that when I come back to council, I can have a much more thorough and well-documented report of what's being done in the rural area, much like you got from Sebastian today. So we're rolling that out on my side of the house.
And on our part, to be fair, as you know, in Bassano, right now we're allotted for 3 constables and myself. We have 4 constables because the members transferring. A lot of the work we were able to do is because of partnerships with Brooks and Gleason. Like just on the 18th, we had a rollover with a semi, and actually the semi, he blew 220, so like almost 2 times the legal limit. So if it wasn't for Brooks to help us with the scene while we process the guy, so it's a partnership. It really does help. So a lot of the stuff we do is because our other 8 Brooks and Gleason is able to help us as well. So.
And that's the way it should be. So it's nice to hear about it. Anything else? Hubie?
So John, are you doing a report? Are you doing a report, John?
Am I giving a report?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'll wait for that.
Okay.
All right.
Sebastian, did you want something signed off today? Or
I can wait till you send it to me. I don't. I believe I sent you in the email the acknowledgement letter. So
Okay.
Either you can sign it today or you can send it to me in email in the next couple of days.
so I can email it back?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, John, or Kelly, sorry.
Switch gears a little bit. I wanted to share with everybody, and Kendra specifically, about our Women's Wellness Day in Bassano on March 7th. It's an all-day event that Bassano FCSS is hosting. So you'd be welcome for a drop-in, but you couldn't stay, Sebastian.
Yeah.
But by all means, share that, and I can send you a link to a poster or talk to Victoria about it.
That would be great. Yeah. I know I can't say, but we could definitely, maybe I can have my PS attend. She has a huge part in our operation, so. Stephanie. No, no.
Didn't think so. Okay, John?
Thank you. Good morning, Council. My report will be for October, December of 2019. During these months, our department placed a focus on pedestrian safety, seat belts, winter driving as per the provincial traffic safety calendar. Our department issued 42 warnings and 30 tickets. Joint operations were conducted with the RCMP, SPCA, and the fire department. And with the SPCA, our department assisted actually with them seizing a quite large herd of cattle. So they asked if we could be there for assistance for officer presence and all that. So we were again, as we've talked with partnerships with everyone helping each other, we were glad to come out and do what we could to help them on that. As well, our department assisted in 2 emergency matters. That was with Bassano RCMP and Bassano Fire. That was a 2-vehicle motor collision that happened on Highway 550 and Highway 1, as Sebastian alluded to earlier. That was that very foggy day, so we were trying to get as much lighting out there to try and slow traffic down. And again, as Sebastian said, it was bad conditions and a large volume of traffic, so it was quite a scene to work with. So the other one that we did, our department assisted in, was with the Brooks conservation officers, RCMP, and fire. And that's where they helped with, our department helped with the missing boater incident that happened earlier last year there. Yeah, so our department helped on that one as well. Our department continues to utilize the speed signs to educate motorists on their speeds and for our data collection. The signs currently right now are placed in Tilly at the school zone locations. Also, our department did utilize what we call the speed spies for data collection only. And that was on Range Road 153, as we had a concern with speeds at the Perini subdivision. So with the weather being what it was, being warm, we could bring out the speed spies, which we use, which these speed spies don't display the speed to the motorists. They're strictly for us for data collection, where the speed signs will flash your speed. So we put that up to for a period of time to collect the speeds, and that helps us to determine with the complaint received if there is a speeding issue, and then we can determine from there if more patrols are needed in that area, and also what times, if there is speeding, that they're occurring. So are they at 1 in the morning, or are we finding that they're in the afternoon? Again, that helps us where our focus will be for patrolling for our department. So we did do that and did get some information from doing that. Further to that, enclosed is my report, which provides further information on the tickets versus warnings that we did throughout the October-December period of time. At that point, that concludes.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome.
Hubie, you had a question?
Hubie had a question, yes.
Recently at the AGM, Rural Crime, we made a motion to renew memberships every year.
Yes, correct.
Because it used to be only $20 for a lifetime. So I thought we should renew our memberships every year so that people are more in touch with what's going on and more involved.
Mm-hmm.
So that motion was passed. So we're going through an email list right now to make sure all these members are contacted and renew their memberships. So that was passed. So we're glad to see that.
Yes.
And Kendra, I look forward to working with you at Bow Slope.
Anything else? Well, thank you, lady and gentlemen.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of the day. Is it windy and warming up? 6? Oh.
That'd be nice.
All right, we'll try and get through some of the planning, the bylaws. At 1 o'clock, we have a delegation as well. Did anybody see any problems with the ICFs that are coming up on our agenda? Wheatland and special areas. Lenz, join us, please. We'll go back to item 7.1, Bylaw 1970-2020, first reading of that, and hand it back to Lenz.
Okay, thank you. So this particular land use amendment, Bylaw 1970-20, is for elemental energy, or the Brooks Solar Energy Project. The lands are subject to redesignation, fall within the IDP as well, the Intermunicipal Development Plan area. It was referred to the committee for comments. Unfortunately, because the AUC provides all the permitting for this particular project, there wasn't a lot of information that was relevant. So the recommendation is that County Council provide first reading, and you may wish to go to second and third reading as well today to move this particular redesignation ahead. So that's from fringe to rural industrial. I would suggest, though, that in your recommended action that you say the rezoning is expressly for the purpose of a commercial solar energy development. Just because once it is rezoned to rural industrial, it does open the door for a few other types of development. And you know, there is some strategy involved in maybe turning it back to fringe should this particular development not go ahead. At this point, we have to sort of operate on good faith. This is what the application's for. All indications are it's going to go ahead, but you know, with the economy and everything else, you just never know. So, thank you.
Questions for Lenz? So we can move to the motion for first reading then. Kelly? Kelly moves this. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And I just wanted to make sure, and my computer is, I'd like that motion, are all of our computers gone crazy, including Ariana's? Oh, okay. I was going to get Ariana to read exactly what it said to make sure that we had, that this is rezoning particular to solar development. And I'm not sure, did it say that in the, Lenz mentioned it should be edited? Good heavens, I'd hate to think if our computers aren't all working with it, we have to stop. But
I follow directions really well. Mary.
For backup? Do you have one down?
The one question I did have, what's the number? Because the number jumps around from 1971-19 to 1970-20.
The bylaw number?
The bylaw number. Is that?
I did not notice that.
I know it doesn't matter, but I just think we should clean it up.
Oh, mine's back up. So the recommended action is to provide first reading, and it says bylaw 1970-20. That would be correct. To redesignate 237.59 acres of land, including portions of Northwest and Southeast 3, 1914, from fringe to rural industrial district. And so how would we add what you wanted in their lens? It was for the sole purpose? Was that what was said?
Yeah, or expressly for the purpose or for the sole purpose, however you want to rate. Have a commercial solar energy development, just that it's on record that that's what your
And that should
intent
be,
is.
that should be part of the,
Sure.
the motion. Okay, Ariana, got her. Okay, any further discussion on that? I think we already, did we already vote? All in favor of the motion as it's correctly written now. Thank you. There is no timelines on hurrying this on. I will leave it to council to decide if we'll go for second and third readings next meeting or today. Well, we'll leave it for next time then? Is that what you're mumbling about? So we need a motion for second reading and then for consent. Brian?
Move second reading.
Brian's moving second reading. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And motion for consent. Wayne is moving. All in favor? Is there anyone opposed? Seeing no one opposed, I'll ask for third reading. Motion. Clarence moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Did you get all those names? Good? Okay. We'll move on to the first intermunicipal lenses. Yeah, special areas. We'll go through all of these. 7-2.
Hi. We have been working with Dillon Consulting on the special areas Newell IDP. So this document is very similar to the one that was passed with Cypress. We included the native grasslands on public lands. The referral process is the same. Referrals will go to administration. If there's an issue, it will go to the CAO of the county and the administrator of special areas. Then IDP committees, joint council, third-party mediation if that was ever required. So that process is the same. The plan area encompasses 1 mile on either side of the Red Deer River, so that's the border between special areas. One thing that was brought to my attention last week was on page 7 under agriculture. It says lands within the plan area along the county of Newell that are part of the EID are to remain dedicated to agriculture in the future. And I know that that was commented on in a previous IDP, and council may wish to have that amended to reflect the change that we made in Cypress. I didn't catch that this time around, I apologize. But how that was reworded for the Cypress was non-agriculture uses should be considered only in areas where they will not negatively impact agriculture uses. So I think that change then would allow for non-agriculture uses to be present or located in those agriculture areas, such as solar. Yeah, and I'm open for questions.
Yes. This is special areas 2 only, but it's special. It's not designated. It's just special areas. Yeah. Okay. Thought that was interesting. All right. Brian.
So I like your suggestion, and not only is it reflective of our previous one with Cypress, but I think it adds some continuity. The question I had is, in your options, you have hearing for yesterday? Public hearing yesterday? Oh, March 19th, sorry. I'm a month ahead of myself. My apologies. I seen that 19th, and for some reason it wasn't, just caught it now. So anyways, I'd move first reading of bylaw 1971-19 with the change to what you recommended.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And for bylaw 7720, rural business to agriculture. Item 7.3.
Okay, thank you. This is an application to redesignate approximately 14 acres, 13.97 acres, sorry, of an existing title containing 30.06 acres from rural business to agriculture, and that's to accommodate a replacement of an existing manufactured home with a moved-in dwelling. The parcel currently includes a shop, an accessory building, outdoor storage, a dugout, and 2 manufactured dwellings. This is for Oasis Trailer Manufacturing, just north of Rolling Hills. The parcel has a little bit of history behind it, as you can see in your package. Currently, the Rural Business Land Use District does not allow for the development of a second dwelling unit, and as such, the applicant is asking that a portion of the land containing the existing to be designated agriculture to accommodate that change. So the recommended action is to provide first reading to redesignate the property.
Questions? Clarence?
So does it still it's still just one property and splitting use, or is it 2 different properties?
No, that's correct. It's one property that will have split zoning.
So we don't have to worry about access?
No.
Anne-Marie?
I'm wondering if we should put this on the list of things to reconsider when we make changes to our land use bylaw. It seems so onerous to have to change your land use bylaw to get the second dwelling. There should be an easier way to do it. So I'm just wondering if staff should maybe make a note that we discuss a second dwelling on a rural business parcel.
Yeah, we've seen a few of these already, and with your staff, we've discussed for the next round of changes accommodating this. Great.
Yeah, this history just makes you think, what? All right. Anything else on that one? Otherwise, we'll take a motion. Clarence moves. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And to bylaw 1978.
Okay, thank you. This one's very similar again. So this is for the purpose of redesignating a portion of one existing parcel containing approximately 3.53 acres from the agricultural district to the rural business district to accommodate a fertilizer retail business, which is intended to be used as a satellite location. And I believe this one is due west of Scandia, just outside of the hamlet. The rural business district can accommodate a bulk fertilizer storage and sales use, which is listed in the district as discretionary. There's 2 large shops contained within the area, and those will be rezoned. There is a house on the property as well, so that will maintain the existing agricultural zoning so that it may be continued. Okay, the recommendation is that Council provide first reading to bylaw 1978-20.
Questions, comments? Wayne? All right, Wayne has made the motion for first reading. Kelly?
Question, how many zonings can you have on a property?
Yeah. Typically, as planners, we don't recommend split zoning, but it is a way to accommodate a variety of uses, right? So you could have more than two if you wanted to, right? It's at council's discretion, but there's a reason. I mean, the land use bylaw is created a certain way, and typically it gets followed, you know, because of various strategies or philosophies on land use. And those change through time, right? So there are always options for council to exercise, you know, their own discretion.
So how does this work? Somebody goes out and measures up the area that's used for RB, another section is used for agriculture. What if the landowner doesn't agree with the size that you delegated to RB and as opposed to agriculture, because there could possibly be a mill rate difference? So
Yes, that's correct.
So how does that fall out?
Well, generally we do this with a pre-consultation with the landowner. So he provided us with the line that was appropriate for the uses that he's requesting, right? So this is the applicant's line and division of uses, not ours as planners.
So then is this splitting new to the County of Newell, or have we been splitting for years?
My understanding is that it has occurred in the past, right? So typically if you're seeing a lot of this occurring, then like Anne-Marie mentioned, it's time to do a revision or a relook at your land use bylaw. Okay.
So we'll expect a list of items to... Brian.
So I'm playing a little devil's advocate here, but if somebody owns an acreage, similar to the one we okayed this morning, what would stop them from splitting that and using the back half for farming, for raising cattle or raising sheep or something like that? So that's the first question. You can give that a little thought. The second question is more for municipal services, and that's in regards to this one. Fertilizer distribution generally, well, it will primarily happen in the spring when the road conditions are less than favorable. Is this road going to be able to handle that? That's my only concern, is that lots of traffic at a very limited or very focused time of the year, and generally they're at the times when our roads are in the most vulnerable spots. So.
For sure, and I think we've had this discussion in the past, and I think I'll start with something that we've talked about before. You know, we are under the opinion that we maintain and upkeep our county gravel roads to withstand, intensive hauling, be it from agricultural, be it from oil and gas, be it from really anything, This road in particular, the nice part you can actually see on the west end there, I believe it's calcium stabilized up to here. Which is great. That's providing dust suppression to the hamlet of Scandia. I really don't see this creating a major issue for operations or anything with regards to that. It being a business, we do have some processes in place with road data services and road use agreements where business owners and such, when they are doing intensive hauling operations, do need to enter into those road use agreements, or are supposed to enter into those road use agreements to ensure that any damage that they do to the road is minimized. And it also lays out and sets out some pretty specific criteria for when that they should and shouldn't be moving. Talks about frozen conditions, talks about wet conditions, talks about thaw conditions. So through other mechanisms, I do believe that we have enough controls in place for the use that's proposed adjacent to this road.
Maria?
Regarding the number of animals, we do have a animal control bylaw. I'm not sure if that's the correct title, but it states how many animals someone can have per acre of land that they have on a parcel. So that would control that agricultural use, I guess, on an acreage residential parcel.
All right, Wayne has made a motion to for first reading. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. I think is that all of the planning stuff for today? Yeah. All right, we will recess for lunch, and at 1 o'clock we have a excuse me, a delegation, so let's try and get that started on time.